Have you ever wondered when the cycle of the earth will come to an end, or when the final year of the world will arrive? If so, then listen to today's message, because the woman in this story has returned from the brink of death with the answer to your question. She died in a severe car accident, and her soul was taken to a divine realm where Jesus revealed to her the last 7 years of the earth. So, when exactly is that final year? What events will unfold in the coming years, and what can we do to prepare? Stay with us and watch until the end of the video to learn what is truly approaching and how we can change before it's too late. Before we begin, I want to remind you that every word shared and every testimony is a call to serve the Lord. Show your faith by liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment with your name and the city you live in as a declaration before heaven, so He knows you and the prayers within your heart. Now, let's listen to her testimony. My name is Olivia Green. First of all, I want to sincerely thank Eternal Bible Stories for giving me the opportunity to share this story with you. What I am about to tell is not an ordinary story, but an experience that completely changed my life, and I believe that this story will bring about profound change to anyone who listens. On that cold October night, what happened completely changed the way I see the world and my life. After going through those miraculous events, I spent months reflecting on what I had witnessed, praying and wondering whether I should share it with others. Now I realize that I can no longer keep this secret. God made me understand that this message is not just for me, but for all who are willing to listen and prepare for what is to come. I was driving home after having a wonderful afternoon with my grandchildren in Birchwood. Around 9:30 p.m., the night sky was pitch black, thick clouds completely covering the moonlight, making the atmosphere strange and quiet. I was about an hour away from home, but that didn't worry me. Even at 63 years old, I still felt comfortable driving at night, and I always took advantage of these quiet moments to pray and reflect on life, on my family, and on the things God had taught me. I remember very clearly the feeling of happiness and gratitude after a lovely afternoon with my grandchildren. Little Grace, who had just turned 6, was so excited to show off her freshly lost baby tooth, her face beaming with a bright smile. Little Ethan, 4 years old, kept begging me to sit on the swing in the yard, even though he could barely push me. My daughter Rebecca had prepared the delicious stew I loved so much, making me feel warm and happy as we enjoyed the meal together as a family. We had such precious moments together, laughing and sharing the simple joys of family. On the way home, I thought about how quickly the children were growing up, and in my heart, I silently thanked God that I could still be a part of their lives. But then, as I was driving down that quiet road, my mood suddenly shifted. Those peaceful moments were quickly shattered by an unexpected event that changed my life forever. I was halfway home when it happened. A deer suddenly darted out, its terrified eyes clearly visible under my headlights. Instinctively, I swerved hard to avoid it, but the road was slick with mist and rainwater, and at that speed I could no longer control the car. It skidded sideways, spinning like a leaf in the wind, and the world around me turned into a whirlwind. The screeching of tires, the crash of metal, and shattering glass echoed in my ears like a death knell. In that moment, my heart could only cry out one desperate prayer: Jesus, please help me. Then suddenly, silence. No more sound, no more gravity. The first thing I noticed was the complete absence of pain and fear. A moment before, I had been surrounded by chaos and overwhelming terror, and in the next instant, I found myself enveloped in a realm of miraculous light, so pure that no words could ever fully describe it. The light wasn't blinding, not harsh like the sun, but warm, clear, and alive, as if it knew me, loved me, and was holding me in an embrace of absolute safety. It didn't just shine around me, it passed through me, carrying with it wisdom, love, and a divine gentleness I had never known. I felt myself floating, weightless, as if gravity no longer applied. I was no longer confined by my body. No more back pain, no more pounding heart, no more short breaths. I was free in a strange and wondrous way. That was when I realized I had left my body. Normally, such a realization would bring fear or panic, but the strange thing was, I felt a profound, unshakable peace. All the worries I had ever carried, those unseen fears, those invisible pressures, melted away like morning mist in the sunlight. In their place was a strange clarity, a kind of awareness I had never experienced while alive. Everything became vivid, deep, as if I were seeing the world for the first time through the true eyes of my soul. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what awaited me. But I knew one thing for certain. I no longer belonged to the earthly world, and what was happening wasn't an ending, but the beginning of something miraculous. Then I heard my name being called, Olivia. That voice was not merely a sound echoing in my ears, but it resonated through my entire being, as if it seeped deep into every part of my soul. That voice carried a powerful authority, but at the same time was strangely gentle, making me instantly recognize who it was, even before I turned to see him. I knew it was Jesus, without a shred of doubt, because of the profound feeling that voice brought. When I turned around, Jesus was standing before me, and nothing in my 63 years of living with Christian faith could have prepared. His eyes held a profound love and infinite understanding, to the point where I felt completely known. Every thought, every emotion, every moment in my life was laid bare before him. And at the same time, I felt wholly accepted, without a trace of judgment. He wore a robe that radiated light, as if it were woven from pure holiness itself, a living light unlike anything I had ever seen. His face, I cannot find enough words to describe it, shone with a glory far beyond what human language can express, both majestic and gentle, both near and supernatural. "My child," he spoke, and that voice carried the weight of eternity, as if every word contained life and meaning beyond time. "I have brought you here for a purpose. There are things you must see, things that my church must understand about the coming times." His words were clear, full of power, but also overflowing with love. I found that I could respond, though not with words spoken from the mouth, like when I was still in the body, but in a way of communication directly from the soul. "Lord," I said, "have I died?" He smiled with a gentleness that made my heart melt. "Your body is at the threshold of life and death in these moments," he answered. "You will return, for you have a message to carry. But first you must witness what is coming, so that you may warn my people and prepare them for the final days." His words were both a comfort and a commission. I understood that this experience was not the end, but the beginning of a mission that he placed upon my shoulders. In his eyes I saw trust and purpose, and I knew that what was about to happen would change me forever. Jesus took my hand, and immediately we began moving through what I can only describe as dimensions of space and time. The sensation far exceeded any earthly experience I had ever known. There was no rush of wind, no sense of physical motion, but it felt as if my soul was being guided through different layers of reality. He began to show me the first vision, our present world, but seen from a spiritual perspective, as though I was observing it through his eyes. I saw digital technology and modern conveniences, smartphones, computers, televisions, covering every place. These were not evil in their nature, but they had become idols to many believers, people who claimed faith in God. People seemed absorbed in a world of glowing screens, engrossed in their devices, social media, and endless entertainment like movies, games, and online news. They were so captivated that they overlooked the spiritual signs all around them, subtle reminders from God, inner callings they no longer heard. "Look closely," Jesus said, his voice both gentle and serious, as he pointed toward the crowd of people in front of me. I saw thousands, millions of people, both young and old, living out their lives. "Many of my children have fallen into a spiritual sleep," he explained. "They still go to church on Sundays, they still say prayers before meals or bedtime, but their hearts are divided. They seek comfort and safety from worldly things instead of seeking me. The enemy has cleverly crafted a perfect distraction, keeping them busy with good things, family, work, entertainment, but causing them to miss the best thing, true intimacy with me." I looked more closely and saw a heartbreaking scene. Christians, people I knew who loved God, were spending hours scrolling through social media, watching video after post, but giving only a few brief minutes, if any, to truly pray or read the Bible. Their phones never left their hands. Notification sounds rang out constantly, yet their hearts were distant from the presence of God. I couldn't stay silent. "But Lord," I asked, "what about all the Christian content online? Sermons, worship songs, faith-based messages. Aren't those good?" He turned to me, his eyes both compassionate and firm. "Some of it serves my purpose," he replied. "There are messages and songs that genuinely lead people closer to me. But much of it has become like fast food for the soul. Quick, convenient, easily accessible, but lacking the true spiritual nourishment my people need. They consume these things to feel good for a moment, but they are not seeking me in stillness, in the deep places of their hearts. My people must return to their first love, must long for my word more than they long for attention, likes, or followers online. Only in closeness with me will they find the strength to face what is coming." The scene before me changed abruptly, as if an invisible curtain had been drawn back. I was no longer standing in peaceful light, but in an atmosphere that felt darker and more oppressive, as if the entire space was filled with silent whispers, with invisible currents of energy carrying a sense of urgency. I sensed that something serious was about to happen, like a great wave rising, ready to sweep across all of humanity. Jesus was still beside me. His voice rang out, clear and full of authority, like a bell warning in the middle of the night. "Look, as the division begins." I looked down and saw churches, congregations all over the world. Places that once resounded with praise and unity were now cracking apart. Invisible walls were rising between people who had once been brothers and sisters in the faith. But these were not divisions over minor issues, they were deep fractures over the very essence of truth. I saw some churches standing firm, not flashy, not prominent, but clinging to the Word of God, remaining faithful to what was written in Scripture. Though criticized, though pressured by culture and governments, they did not waver. But beside them I saw many other churches beginning to change. At first it was subtle, shifting the language in sermons, avoiding sensitive topics, then gradually altering doctrine to be more welcoming to modern society. Leaders who had once been strong in the faith now began bending with the flow of the times. I could clearly see the pressure from media, from legal systems, even from those sitting in the pews. The pressure to conform was like an invisible wave pressing down on everyone. They were not being persecuted with chains, but with shame, isolation, loss of employment, and loss of honor. I saw many people forced to make heartbreaking choices, remain loyal to truth, or keep their job, their family's approval, their community's support. "This is only the beginning," Jesus said, his eyes gazing far ahead, as if piercing through time and across nations. "These divisions will compel those who truly follow me to decide whom they will serve. Many will fall away, choosing the approval of man over mine, because that road is easier. But those who stand firm will be refined by fire, and they will be stronger than ever. I swallowed my tears as I saw what came next. A scene unfolded like a global stage: television, social media, politics, and at the center stood a prominent figure. A man, strangely attractive. His face was captivating. His voice flowed like water over stone, smooth and persuasive. He didn't shout, didn't threaten. On the contrary, he smiled, offering ideal solutions to every issue in the world: war, poverty, climate change, economic instability. Every word he said seemed reasonable, even compassionate. Even many Christians began speaking of him as someone sent by God. I saw many within the church praising him, feeling comforted that someone was finally bringing peace. But inside me, an unease rose like a tide. A part of my soul screamed, "This isn't right. Something is terribly wrong." "This is the deceiver," Jesus said, his voice more serious than ever. "He will come like an angel of light. He will use words of peace, humanity, and unity to seduce the world. But he does not belong to me." I looked closer at the man, and truly, he spoke much of spirituality, of universal love, of faith, but he never once mentioned the name of Jesus. He said nothing of the cross, nothing of sacrifice or sin, only of evolution of consciousness, of a global religion where all beliefs are valid, so long as they do not divide. Jesus looked at me, his eyes stern. He promotes a universal faith, one that seems tolerant and inviting, but denies my divinity, denies the value of my blood poured out on the cross. This is the great deception I warned about in my word. I saw him begin to establish a new global system, not enforced through violence, but through allure. People stepped into it willingly, feeling like they were part of something grand. This system solved poverty, calmed wars, revived economies. It looked like heaven on earth. But within it were invisible chains, enslaving the human soul away from the true God. I shuddered. I saw praise for him spreading like a plague. Every post, every video, every celebration exalting him echoed across the globe. He smiled, but his eyes were empty. I turned to the Lord, my heart heavy. How can your people possibly stand firm in the face of such a sophisticated deception? Jesus answered, "Only those who truly know me, who walk with me daily, will not be deceived. Not those who know about me, but those who know me. Those who hear my voice, read my word, live in my presence, they will recognize." I bowed my head, trembling inside, but I also felt clarity. This is the season of separation, when the wheat is parted from the tares, and only those deeply rooted in the Word of God will survive and lead others into the truth. The vision shifted once again. This time, it felt as if I were turning to an entirely new chapter in a sacred book. The scene changed abruptly, and I saw a new figure rising amidst a world in upheaval. He was nothing like the previous leader, not possessing the charismatic appeal of a politician, but instead carried a strange kind of spiritual authority that supernaturally drew people in. I could feel his presence like a powerful gravitational pull. People called him the false prophet, and the moment he began to act, I understood why so many bowed before him. I saw with my own eyes as he called fire down from heaven, not some light show or illusion, but real fire pouring down as though commanded by heaven itself. The crowd around him screamed in awe, clapping and shouting as if they had witnessed a sign from God himself. Then I saw him heal the blind, make the lame walk, and with every miracle, his supernatural authority seemed more and more validated. But the strange thing was, while people cheered and fell to their knees, my heart was filled with deep unrest. Something was wrong, something was unholy, something was not true. These miracles looked real, felt real, but carried with them an invisible chill, as if instead of life, they sowed enchantment. I turned to Jesus, my voice trembling from the deepest part of my soul. Lord, how can people tell the difference between these false miracles and your true power? He looked at me, his gaze the same as always, tender and yet stern, and answered with a voice firm as stone, "Those who know me intimately will recognize the difference. The signs of the false prophet are designed to draw attention to himself and to the Antichrist, to glorify man, to solidify their own power, but my true miracles always lead people to me, to the sacrifice I made on the cross, and to the glory of my Father in heaven." He paused for a moment, then continued, "This is why my people must develop deep spiritual discernment now, before these things come to pass. Only true closeness with me, living in my presence, will allow them to see through the veil of deception." Immediately the vision shifted again, this time even darker. I saw a concept Jesus referred to as the mark of the beast. It was nothing like I had imagined, not a grotesque symbol or a terrifying tattoo. Instead, it was introduced as the perfect solution to all of humanity's most painful problems. I saw massive global campaigns with sleek language, bright colors, and imagery promising a world without poverty, without discrimination, a world where everyone is safe and connected through one unified system. The mark was tied to a new digital currency, linked to every aspect of human life, from buying groceries and receiving medical care to securing housing or enrolling children in school. "Look at how it is presented," Jesus said, his voice now more serious than ever. I saw millions of people, young and old, lining up with excitement to receive the mark. They believed it was the next great leap for humanity, the guarantee of a fair, advanced and stable future. Promotional messages spoke of a world without war, a community where no one is left behind. But many will not recognize it for what it truly is, Jesus explained. They will see only the immediate benefits, convenience, safety, the feeling of belonging to something greater. But accepting this mark is a conscious decision to reject me and pledge allegiance to the enemy's system. No one will be forced. They choose it because they lack discernment. Those words pierced my heart. Then I saw those who refused the mark, not because they were rebellious toward the government, but because they were faithful to God. They were pushed to the margins of society. They could not buy food, access healthcare, or participate in any transaction. Many lost their jobs, were evicted from their homes, and lived as invisible people in a modern world. The world became a cold, foreign, and hostile place for them, but in that darkness I saw something incredible. I saw true communities of believers, those who refused to bow, gathering together. There were no high walls or flashy rituals, only the fire of faith burning in small homes, in caves, deep forests, and even in dimly lit basements. They shared every loaf of bread, every drop of water, every song, every verse of scripture. They helped each other survive, but more importantly, they helped each other stand firm in truth. "My true church," Jesus said, and his voice turned warm, filled with deep love and pride, "will shine brightest in this darkness. It is when the things of the world collapse that my love and power will be revealed most clearly through their lives. Many will be saved, not through sermons, but through quiet sacrifice and genuine love that the world cannot extinguish." I stood frozen, tears streaming down my face. I understood then, this war is not merely about a mark or a system. It is about loyalty. It is about who is truly Lord in your heart. And even now, every person is already choosing, by how they live, by what they seek, by who they listen to. The vision widened as if a great curtain had been pulled back, revealing what would soon unfold upon the earth. And what I saw shook my soul to its core. Horrific natural disasters began occurring one after another, as though all of creation was screaming in agony. I witnessed earthquakes so violent they brought entire cities down in seconds, the ground splitting open as if torn apart by an invisible hand. I saw towering tsunamis, waves as high as skyscrapers, rushing inland, swallowing everything, homes, cars, people. No one could stand against them. The weather turned chaotic, hailstones fell like burning red embers, and the wind howled with the cry of judgment. The sky itself turned a deep crimson as if soaked in blood, and everything was shrouded in an unspeakable sense of dread. I turned to Jesus, my heart filled with questions, fear, and a desperate need to understand what I was witnessing. He looked at me with eyes full of mercy, but also solemn authority. "These events," he said, "will increase in both frequency and intensity. These are the birth pangs of the end. Each disaster is a warning, a trumpet blast to alert the world that time is running out." He explained that humanity would try to rationalize everything. They would blame science, climate change, and natural cycles. But God's people, those who love His word, would recognize the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. I saw crops destroyed, fields withering in drought, famine spreading, and the global supply chains collapsing. Supermarket shelves stood empty. People fought over loaves of bread, over drops of clean water. Riots erupted. Panic swept across nations, and people began to view each other not as fellow human beings, but as threats to survival. And in that chaos, the Antichrist appeared as a hero. He entered the scene as the supposed savior of the world, offering solutions to every crisis: food, safety, peace, order. He opened relief centers, created resource distribution systems, but only for those who accepted his terms. And I could feel it deep in my spirit. This was not salvation. It was a trap disguised with perfection. He uses panic to solidify his power, Jesus said, and step by step he leads humanity into spiritual slavery. Yet amid this darkness, I was shown something miraculous. I saw faithful Christian families with no food, yet food would appear on their tables. No one knew how. I saw children rescued from rubble without a single scratch, carried by invisible angels. I saw the wounded rise, the hopeless comforted, all unfolding in the sacred silence of divine miracles. "I will never abandon my people," Jesus said, his voice a firm foundation in the storm. And he showed me the final stage, the last 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation, when darkness was no longer metaphorical but a tangible force blanketing the earth. I saw the Antichrist break his peace treaty with Israel, march into the Holy Temple with arrogant defiance, and declare himself to be God. He demanded worship, no longer hiding behind unity and love. And those who refused faced the most brutal persecution the world has ever known. I saw Christians being hunted down, captured and thrown into hidden detention camps. Some were tortured, many were executed publicly, but on their faces there was no fear, only peace. No hatred, only love. I saw light emanating from inside the prisons, songs of praise rising amid the crack of whips, and martyrs dying with smiles on their lips. Their sacrifice moved even the executioners. Some fell to their knees and surrendered to Christ on the spot. I saw underground churches springing up everywhere, not cathedrals with domes, but hearts set ablaze. The word of God was passed hand to hand on scraps of paper, memorized, whispered in the dark. And though the world tried everything to extinguish it, the gospel spread like wildfire, beyond every wall, beyond every control. "Many will come to faith during this time," Jesus said, his eyes burning with radiant hope. "Though they will pay with their lives, they will receive eternal life in me. This is the great power of sacrifice and love, a power the enemy can never comprehend and will never conquer." I stood there, my heart both shattered and revived, witnessing the fusion of suffering and glory, of persecution and victory. I knew this was the final defining hour, the moment when light and darkness would collide and God's people would not retreat. At last, the vision reached its climax. Jesus showed me the end of all things, his glorious return. The sight was beyond anything the human mind could comprehend or words could capture. The sky suddenly tore open, not like a storm, but as though space and time themselves were being ripped apart to make way for something supernatural. From that blinding rupture, Jesus appeared, not as the humble carpenter of Nazareth, but as the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, coming in power and indescribable glory. He rode a white horse, surrounded by the armies of heaven, each angel radiant like lightning, bearing an authority that could not be resisted. Trumpets sounded like rolling thunder. The earth shook, and every knee in heaven, on earth, and under the earth bowed before his eternal presence. I couldn't take my eyes off him. In every movement of Jesus was the perfect fusion of power, justice, and love. I sensed that all of human history had been leading to this very moment, when every truth would be revealed and every soul would be divided. "This is what my people must remember," Jesus declared, his voice echoing like thunder through creation, yet filled with the tenderness of a life-giving stream. "No matter how dark things become, no matter how victorious the enemy may appear, my return is certain. The victory was decreed before the foundations of the world, but many are not ready. They've built their houses on sand, on comfort, ambition, and distraction, instead of the solid rock of my word." Jesus turned to me, his eyes filled with love, but also with a heavy urgency. "You must share what you have seen. Some will dismiss it as imagination or superstition, but others will hear, and they will prepare. Tell them that I am coming soon, but before that, all these things must take place, as they have been ordained in my plan. Call them to draw near to me now, before the door is closed." I felt my soul begin to depart from the spiritual realm, slowly returning to my body. I woke up in the hospital. I later learned I had been clinically dead for 13 minutes after the accident. The medical staff had pronounced me gone, but suddenly my heart started beating again. The injuries were severe, broken bones, internal bleeding, but I recovered fully within a few months, something the doctors could only describe as a miracle. If Olivia Green's story might leave you slightly confused with the visions of the future, the experience of the man you're about to hear will vividly highlight the message from God to humanity. While Olivia was guided on a journey full of light and hope, he went through an encounter full of trials and hardship. While Olivia saw a world full of love and compassion, he witnessed disasters and the collapse of an entire civilization. Moreover, he was taken into a profound spiritual battle, where he had to face life or death decisions for himself and for all of humanity. His story will profoundly enlighten you about the signs we need to prepare for. Welcome back to Eternal Bible Stories, where we bring you the most powerful and life-changing near-death experiences, stories that unveil hidden truths about life, death, and the unseen world beyond. Today's testimony is unlike anything you've ever heard. A man died and found himself before Jesus Christ, but instead of just witnessing heaven or hell, he was given something far greater, a prophetic vision of Earth's future. What he saw was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. It was not just about his own soul, but a warning for all of humanity. What did Jesus reveal about what's coming to our world? Are we standing on the brink of destruction, or is there still hope? Listen carefully, because what you're about to hear may change everything you thought you knew about the future. My name is Samuel Harper. I am 71 years old, and I live in Montana, where endless mountain ranges stretch across the horizon and ancient forests cast their shadows. Despite my age, my passion for hunting burns as fiercely as it did in my youth. After 50 years of training and battling the wilderness, I have maintained a level of endurance that makes people believe I am only around 60. I am a tough man, one who never believed in the supernatural, never thought about heaven or hell. To me, life was simply about survival and enjoying what I had. That day was a special occasion. My children and grandchildren had come home for the holidays. The house was suddenly filled with laughter, and I felt young again. I wanted to contribute to the family feast just as I had done for years. A fat deer, taken down with my own hands, would make for a meal to remember. Even though my wife and children urged me to rest, I simply chuckled. I had been hunting my entire life. This was second nature to me. In the hunting community, they called me the master, as I had trained countless young hunters over the years. I checked my rifle, slung it over my shoulder, and drove into the forest. A forest I knew like the back of my hand, where I could recognize every tree and every trace of wildlife. The sky was clear, the December air was crisp and cold, yet I felt strangely refreshed. I walked several miles deep into the woods, choosing a tree stand about 20 feet high, a perfect vantage point for an ambush. Securing myself to the stand, I pulled my rifle up with a rope and patiently waited. I had done this hundreds of times before, but that morning, one split-second mistake changed everything. A sudden snap echoed through the trees. The safety strap had broken. I felt my body plunge into the air, free-falling towards the earth below. Time seemed to slow down. I saw leaves trembling, heard the wind howling past my ears, and felt every moment of my descent. In that instant, I wasn't just thinking about a fall. I knew this was the end. Darkness swallowed me whole. I knew this was the end, and though only a few seconds remained before impact, everything seemed to slow down unnaturally. My thoughts raced like a flood breaking through a dam. My wife, my children, my grandchildren, my family. Would anyone find me? Would I simply vanish in these woods, forgotten? The realization struck me like a hammer. I had never considered death in this way before. I had always been strong, capable, confident in my body, and now, in an instant, I was helpless. As the ground rushed toward me, a strange calm settled over my mind, as if part of me already knew what was coming. Then, everything faded into darkness. That darkness stretched on endlessly, weightless and silent, yet I was still aware. I didn't know if I was unconscious, dead, or trapped in some strange in-between state. But then, something beyond my comprehension happened. I felt myself separate from my body. One moment I was sinking into nothingness, and the next I was rising. I looked down and saw myself sprawled on the rocks below, my limbs twisted unnaturally, blood seeping from my mouth, my ears, my nose. I should have felt horror, but instead I was gripped by a strange sense of detachment, as if my emotions no longer belonged to me. There was no pain, no panic, just an eerie, weightless clarity. And then I felt it. A force unlike anything I had ever known, pulling me upward with an undeniable strength. I ascended with staggering speed, moving beyond the treetops, beyond the clouds, beyond everything I had ever known. Earth shrank beneath me, its blue and green hues glowing like a precious gem against the vast darkness. I should have been terrified, but instead I was captivated. I had spent my life gazing at the stars, never truly considering what lay beyond, and now I was soaring through the very cosmos itself. Planets swirled in the distance, massive and majestic, their colors more vivid than anything visible from Earth. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. Was I dying? Was I dreaming? My mind rebelled against the impossible, but my soul knew better. The speed intensified, pulling me deeper into the unknown, past distant galaxies, past wonders I could not name. Then suddenly I was no longer in open space. I was inside something, A tunnel, vast and endless, its walls shimmering with colors I had never seen before. It was neither solid nor empty, a strange hybrid of light and shadow twisting together in a pattern I couldn't understand. And at the end of this passage, a light began to grow. Not just a glow, but a presence, something alive, something infinite. As I moved toward it, I felt its warmth radiate through me, dissolving every lingering trace of fear. I had no control over my direction, yet I felt no need to resist. I was being drawn toward something far greater than myself. Then, as suddenly as I had entered, I emerged into an entirely new realm. Before me stood a colossal staircase, each step seemingly carved from pure, glowing energy. It stretched upward, leading to what appeared to be a bridge or a grand walkway. My gaze followed its path, and in the distance I saw something beyond belief. A city unlike anything I had ever imagined. It shimmered like crystalline glass, its structures both delicate and impossibly strong, glowing with hues that pulsed like a living heartbeat. It was breathtaking, a sight that defied every earthly understanding of beauty. I felt an overwhelming sense of awe, an instinctive recognition that this was no ordinary place. I moved forward, drawn toward the city, my mind overflowing with questions. Was this heaven? Was I truly dead? If so, why was everything so different from what I had been taught? The sheer magnitude of what I was seeing left me speechless. As I approached the towering gates, I saw a set of massive double doors, polished to such perfection that they reflected the brilliance of the city itself. They stood at least 30 feet tall, an entrance meant for something far greater than mere mortal. I hesitated, unsure of what to do next, but before I could even process my thoughts, the doors began to open on their own. I stepped forward hesitantly, peering inside. The interior was vast beyond measure, a place of endless corridors and towering structures. People moved within, yet they were unlike any I had ever seen before. They walked with purpose, yet their faces were hidden beneath long, hooded robes. Their presence carried a weight, as if they belonged to something far older than time itself. I had the sense that I was not unwelcome, but neither was I expected. I moved cautiously, my gaze darting between the robed figures who seemed completely unaware of me. It was as if I were invisible, a ghost wandering through a world beyond my comprehension. Then one of them stopped. Unlike the others, he turned his head slowly, lifting his face toward me. I was struck by the eerie, otherworldly nature of his appearance. He looked human, yet something about him was undeniably different. His eyes, there were no pupils, only shifting shades of green that seemed to swirl like liquid energy. His hair was white as snow, framing a face that radiated wisdom and something far deeper. Something I could not name. I wanted to speak, to ask who he was, but before I could utter a word, he simply raised a hand and pointed. My gaze followed his gesture, leading me toward a long, dimly lit hallway, stretching into the unknown. Though he said nothing, I understood. I was meant to go that way. My feet moved before my mind could question it. There was something waiting for me at the end of that corridor, something I needed to see. The figure turned away and continued walking, disappearing into the crowd as if he had never been there at all. I hesitated only a moment before pressing forward, the weight of inevitability settling over me. My heart pounded. Though I no longer possessed a physical body, the hallway stretched endlessly, each step pulling me deeper into an unseen truth. Finally, I reached the end. Another pair of massive double doors loomed before me, their surface smooth and metallic. Were they gold, or something beyond human comprehension? Before I could ponder further, the doors swung open violently, a force unseen commanding their movement. A voice spoke, not in sound, but directly into my very being. "Enter." I obeyed without question. The doors slammed shut behind me, plunging me into absolute darkness. For the first time since my journey began, fear gripped me. There was nothing, No light, no movement, only silence so profound it felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, from the emptiness, a glow began to emerge. It grew brighter, stronger, until it became nearly unbearable. I shielded my eyes, yet the light pierced through me, illuminating my soul rather than my vision. Within the radiance, a form took shape. It was seated upon something. Was it a throne? The details eluded me, yet the presence was undeniable. And then, suddenly, it spoke. "What have you done with your life?" The voice shattered through me like 1,000 echoes colliding at once. It wasn't just a question, it was a reckoning. My soul trembled under the weight of it. I opened my mouth, but no words came. I had no answer. Before me, a blinding light suddenly flashed, and then I saw it. A massive screen unfolding in the vast emptiness. But this was not just an ordinary projection. It was a living memory. I was not merely an observer watching from the outside. Somehow I was inside it. It was as if I had been pulled backward in time, reliving every moment of my existence with such vivid clarity that I could feel every breath, every emotion, as if they were happening all over again. I saw my mother, her face contorted in pain as she gave birth to me. I heard my first cries, the laughter of my father as he held me in his arms for the first time. Then the images accelerated. My childhood, the afternoons spent running through endless fields, the echoing laughter of friends. I watched myself grow, mature, make decisions and choose paths. No detail was omitted. Every moment, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, was laid bare before me. I saw the good I had done, fleeting acts of kindness that I had once thought trivial but were now revealed to have profound meaning. I saw an unfamiliar man stranded beside his car on a deserted road, his fuel tank empty, his face lined with worry. I watched myself stopping, offering him a ride to the nearest gas station, buying him fuel without expecting anything in return. A simple act, yet I could feel his relief, his gratitude washing over me. As the image faded, a voice emerged from the light. Not loud, but resonating with undeniable authority. "You did not hesitate to help this soul, nor did you expect anything in return. This is the essence of goodness." But not everything before me was beautiful. I was also shown the darkest moments of my life. The times I had inflicted pain upon others, whether deliberately or unintentionally. I saw the faces of those I had hurt, the words I had spoken cutting through them like a knife. But what terrified me the most was that I did not merely see their suffering, I felt it. It was as though I was forced to relive every moment of anguish I had caused, except now I was in their place. I felt the weight of my cruel words, the sting of my indifference. I saw the ripple effect of my actions, how a single careless remark had driven someone into despair, how a single selfish act had shattered someone's trust in humanity. I had never considered that my life could have such an impact. I had always assumed that my actions were insignificant, that they faded into nothingness. But now I understood everything we do leaves a mark. Every decision, no matter how small, creates ripples that spread outward, affecting people in ways we may never realize. And as I witnessed the full extent of my influence, I was overcome with regret. I had done too little, cared too little, wasted too much time, chasing things that held no real value. I bowed my head, consumed by remorse, but the voice spoke again, this time firmer, more commanding. "You must return." I jolted in shock. Return? I didn't want to return. Here I had seen the truth, grasped the meaning behind everything. I did not want to go back to the world of illusions, where people blindly pursued fleeting desires, where I would once again be trapped in a frail mortal body. I longed to stay. I needed more answers. I needed to understand more. I know you have many questions, but your time has not yet come. You must return and help others change, by changing your own life first." The voice thundered once more, its weight pressing deep into my soul like an indelible mark of destiny. "The doctors will insist on operating on you. Do not allow this to happen. If you do, you will never walk again." Each word carried an urgency I could not ignore. Then, like a dam breaking, a flood of knowledge surged into my mind. Visions, warnings, instructions, as if the very blueprint of my fate was being laid before me. "A visitor will come to you, bringing answers to the questions that weigh on your heart. When I call, you will return. You will recover from everything that has happened, but only if you follow what I have told you." Before I could process those words, an unseen force turned my gaze downward, and the world I had once known was gone. In its place, an apocalyptic nightmare unfolded. I saw towering plumes of smoke rising like funeral pyres from the ruins of cities. Entire skylines were swallowed by flames, their structures collapsing like sandcastles against a merciless tide. In the streets, anarchy reigned. Crowds rioted in desperation, their faces contorted in terror as lawlessness devoured the last remnants of civilization. World War III had begun. But this was no conventional war. There were no borders, no alliances, no clear enemies or victors. The entire world had become a battlefield, and the only rule left was survival. I saw once thriving nations reduced to wastelands, their governments collapsed, their leaders vanished. The United States, once the greatest superpower, had fallen. There was no law, no structure, only roving factions of desperate, armed survivors, fighting for the few resources that remained. The streets became hunting grounds where the strong preyed upon the weak. Families were torn apart as fathers and sons killed for food, as mothers begged in vain to protect their starving children. Winter arrived with an unrelenting cruelty. A frozen graveyard stretched as far as the eye could see, cities buried under the weight of snow and despair. Those who had once lived in comfort were now reduced to scavengers, digging through the ruins for anything that could sustain them. But hunger was an enemy that showed no mercy. I saw the skeletal remains of those who had perished, their hollow eyes staring into nothingness. Mothers cradled lifeless children in their arms, their screams lost in the howling winds of a world that had abandoned them. Then, a force even greater than war erupted before me, a cataclysm so vast that it dwarfed every disaster that came before it. Yellowstone had awakened. A volcanic titan that had slumbered for millennia now roared to life, spewing a column of ash miles into the sky, blotting out the sun. Darkness fell over the land, a suffocating, choking blackness that stretched across continents. The world turned cold as an eerie twilight descended, casting a shadow of doom over all who remained. Acid rain poured from the heavens, scorching what little life had survived. Cities vanished beneath layers of ash so thick that entire civilizations were buried alive. The air became poison. Those without gas masks suffocated in the streets, their bodies collapsing where they stood. Nuclear winter had begun. And still the destruction was not complete. I turned my eyes skyward just as an explosion in space sent shockwaves through the atmosphere. An EMP detonation. The world's entire power grid collapsed in an instant. The lights went out, the internet vanished, every means of communication was severed. In a blink, humanity was thrust into a new dark age. No electricity, no technology, no way to reach the outside world. Entire nations crumbled into anarchy. The strong ruled by force and the weak were slaughtered. I saw desperate hands clutching at empty water taps, saw blood spilled over scraps of rotting food. Cities that had once symbolized progress and power now lay silent, reduced to crumbling tombs. Then, just as despair reached its peak, a flicker of hope emerged. A new generation had risen. They were young, unburdened by the corruption of the past. Unlike those before them, they were not driven by greed nor poisoned by power. They had survived, not through violence, but through unity. I saw them rebuilding, not with steel and glass, but with harmony and wisdom. Their cities were simple, woven into nature itself. There were no more empires, no more tyrants, no more wars. They had learned what humanity had long forgotten, that true wealth was not found in gold, but in peace. "It is time for you to leave," the voice spoke one last time, and I knew there was no arguing with it. I longed to stay, to witness the rebirth of the world, to see what would come next, but the choice was not mine to make. A great door materialized before me, and before I could resist, I was seized by an unseen force, yanked backward through the path from which I had come. I was pulled through the void at unimaginable speed. Stars blurred past me, galaxies streaked into nothingness, and the earth loomed closer and closer. I saw it all, the blue planet, the vast forests, the winding rivers. I saw my own body still lying there, lifeless upon the rock, and in that final moment before I re-entered my flesh, understanding flooded through me. I had been given a second chance, a chance to change, a chance to make things right, a chance to warn the world before it was too late. And then I opened my eyes. I saw my body lying there motionless on the cold rock, my empty eyes staring blankly at the grey sky above. A tremendous force surged through my soul like a violent electric shock, yanking me back into reality. In a fleeting instant, every cell in my body seemed to jolt awake. I gasped for air, but my lungs refused to fill. Pain crashed over me like a wild beast, tearing through my flesh. My chest convulsed, every breath was sheer agony, my throat was thick with blood, and half my body felt completely paralyzed. I struggled to turn over, but a searing pain shot from my spine down to the tips of my toes, sending shudders through me. I was alive, but survival did not mean safety. I looked up at the sky. The sun was lower than when I had fallen. How long had I been lying here? I forced my gaze down to my watch, 5:30 p.m. Darkness would soon descend, and with it, the temperature would plummet. If I didn't find a way to signal for help, I would freeze to death right here. I turned my head, scanning for my rifle. It was only a few feet away, still tethered to the strap wrapped around my waist. Summoning every ounce of remaining strength, I clawed toward it, my body screaming in protest. The pain was so unbearable that tears streamed down my face. I gritted my teeth, grasped the barrel, lifted it, and pulled the trigger. The gunshot shattered the eerie silence of the deep woods. I waited, straining to hear any response. Nothing, only silence. I fired another shot, then another, spacing them out every 10 minutes. But the silence remained, vast, oppressive, swallowing me whole. I was bleeding out. I was freezing, and I knew I couldn't just lie here and wait for death. I had to move, no matter the cost. I began to crawl. I dragged my broken body through layers of dry leaves, through jagged thorns that tore at my skin. Pain exploded in every joint, but I clenched my teeth and forced my arms to keep pulling. Every inch forward felt like an eternity, but I refused to stop. I crawled over rocks, through thick brush, every movement sending a fresh wave of agony through my shattered spine. I blacked out, then woke up, then crawled again. I had no concept of time, only the raw, burning instinct to survive. Then, as I lifted my head, I saw it, through the dense canopy of trees, a narrow dirt road leading home. A flicker of hope ignited inside me, but I was too weak to scream for help. I parted my lips, but only feeble, broken whispers escaped. And then I heard it, the distant growl of an engine. I wanted to weep with relief. I poured every last ounce of strength into dragging myself toward the middle of the road, desperate to make myself seen, but my body betrayed me. I collapsed, trembling, unable to do anything but wait. Headlights flared, cutting through the twilight, illuminating my battered form. I heard a car door slam, followed by hurried footsteps. It was my father-in-law. He dropped to his knees beside me, eyes wide with terror. "Oh, dear God. Samuel, you're alive." I tried to smile, but only a weak, bloodied cough escaped my lips. I felt his trembling hands gripping me tightly. "You're going to be okay," I heard him whisper, his voice shaking. "Just hold on." That was the last thing I remembered before I saw the bright light in the emergency room. A doctor stood at the foot of my bed. "Can you feel this?" he asked. "Feel what?" I replied, confused. Then I saw him press a sharp instrument against my leg. But there was nothing, no pain, no sensation. "You're paralyzed." His words hit me like a hammer. "We can't treat you here, son," the doctor continued. "We're going to transfer you by ambulance to a hospital that can handle your condition." Whether it was due to pain or the effects of the medication, my world faded to black once again. When I woke up the next afternoon, 2 doctors stood at the end of my hospital bed. They introduced themselves as my attending physicians and explained the urgency of my situation. "Your spine is broken, and the fractured vertebrae are compressing your spinal cord," one of them said. "You need immediate surgery or the paralysis will be permanent." Then it happened. A voice, the same voice that had spoken to me before, echoed in my mind. "Do not let them operate. If they do, you will never walk again." I instantly understood, though I knew the doctors would never believe me. "I need to see my wife and daughter first," I told them. They exchanged glances, but agreed to let me speak to my family. When my wife and daughter arrived, their faces were filled with worry. I looked into my wife's eyes and took a deep breath. "I can't go through with the surgery," I said firmly. She stared at me in shock. "Samuel, what are you saying? The doctors said this is the only way to save you." I struggled to explain. How could I tell her what I had seen, that I had been given knowledge beyond human understanding? "You have to trust me," I pleaded. "If I have this surgery, I will never walk again." She hesitated, tears welling in her eyes. Though she didn't understand, she respected my decision. When the doctors returned, I told them my choice. They were furious. "If you refuse surgery, you will never walk again," one of them snapped. "Do you understand that?" I simply nodded. "I will walk," I whispered. That night, doubt crept in. Had I made a mistake? Was I throwing away my only chance? Tears streamed down my face. I prayed, not for healing, but for understanding. Then a radiant light filled my hospital room. "You will be healed." The voice was calm, yet powerful. Then it was gone. The days turned into weeks. The weeks turned into months. I lay in bed, unable to move. But deep inside, I knew. I was waiting for the promise to be fulfilled. And then one morning, it happened. A tingling sensation ran through my feet. My heart pounded. I could feel something. I called the nurse. "I want to stand up." She looked at me sympathetically. "Let's take it one step at a time," she said, unconvinced. But I knew. She called my doctor, and the next morning he arrived. "So, you think you can walk?" he asked skeptically. "Yes." "All right," he said. "Let's see." They wheeled me down to the physical therapy room and lifted me into an upright position. 2 nurses helped me stand in front of the parallel bars. I gripped the bars tightly and took a deep breath. Then a step, then another. "Oh my God, he's walking!" the nurse cried out. Tears filled my eyes, but I kept moving. Each step was a battle, but I knew I was winning. Over the next few days, I continued my therapy. My family watched in astonishment, but deep inside I wasn't surprised. I had been warned. I had been prepared. Later, my doctor reviewed my latest X-rays. He stared at them for a long time before shaking his head. This isn't normal," he finally said. "It's like a higher power did what we intended to do with surgery. I've never seen anything like this before." I smiled. I had, because I had been told it would happen. Samuel Harper was given a second chance, but not everyone will be. His story is not just about survival. It's about a truth that so many refuse to see. A glimpse beyond death, a warning of what's to come, and a call to change before it's too late. How many of us are sleepwalking through life, thinking we have all the time in the world? But when that final moment arrives, will we be ready? If this story has made you think, let us know in the comments where you're listening from, or type Amen if you feel its weight. Samuel saw the future, saw what awaits those who turn a blind eye, and he was sent back to share it. The question is, will we listen? Will we take the warning seriously, or will we ignore it until it's too late? Don't keep this story to yourself. Someone you know needs to hear it. Share it with your friends, your family, and your community. Time is running out, and the truth is not something we can afford to ignore. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We will continue to bring stories that open eyes and awaken souls. The truth is being revealed. The only question left is, what will you do with it?